to part two of building our own Cordyceps zombie invasion with React and a little bit of framer motion. So where did we leave off at the end of the first part? Well, we have these zombies represented by the little green squares here, and our people represented by the little yellow squares here, being rendered onto our screen, and these positions for both the zombies and the people are dynamically generated, meaning that if we refresh this page, they're always going to be in different spots. I can even resize this window however I like, and those positions are going to be based on the window width and height. Just a quick reminder, the final product of what we're trying to build is something like this. We have these fully rendered people and zombies on the screen. And if I click on one of these people, the zombies are going to swarm that person, turn them into another zombie, and so forth. I can keep clicking through the scene, and that'll just continue to happen. So for this part of the lesson, we are going to work on how we can make these green zombie squares move to one of these yellow people squares when I click on one and turn that person into another zombie. We are not going to worry about the animation yet, meaning that when I click on one of these people, the green squares are going to effectively teleport to the position of the person and immediately turn that person into another zombie. This is so that we can focus the lesson more on how callbacks work in React and how we can create these functions that allow the parent scene component to control the movement of the zombies to the people and the turning of the people into zombies. The final part coming up next will be more about the animation side of things. So let's get into it. So what do we need to do first? Well, we know that when we click on one of these people, we want all of those zombie squares to move to its position. So that suggests that we need some sort of click handler on these people, right? So if I go back to our code from the first part, we have our person component, and this is just a simple div. So adding a click handler is as simple as adding an on-click prop to this div and adding some function here. But we run into a problem now, right? This person component doesn't know anything about the zombie components. There's no way, if we look purely at the scope of this component, to tell the zombies to move to its position. So that suggests that we need some sort of callback function so that the parent component, and this is the one that knows about both the people and the zombies, is able to tell the zombie components to move to the position of that person. So that means that rather than trying to define anything about zombies in the scope of the person component, all we're going to do is add some on-click handler function here. So this is a new prop, so I'm going to add it in here. And we also need to add it into our type declaration here. And this is just going to be a parameterless function. So something you can also notice here is that this still doesn't have anything to do with zombies, right? The responsibility of this person component isn't really to know anything about the zombies or that clicking on it tells zombies to move to it. The person doesn't really care. You just click on it and something happens, and it's up to the parent component to determine what that thing is. So we're going to do that now. If we go back to our parent component, you can see that we now have a linting error here because we're missing this new on-click prop. So let's add that in, right? What's going to happen when you click on a person? Well, we want all of the zombies to essentially attack that person, right? So because we want the zombies to attack that person, that suggests that these zombies are going to need to know about the person they want to attack. So that also suggests there's some kind of state variable going on here, right? This parent component keeps track of some person to attack in this overall scene that may or may not be defined. So let's try and define this new state prop that way, right? So when we click on the person, what's going to happen? Well, we are going to set the person to attack. And who are we going to set it to? Well, it's just this person that we're rendering. So set person to attack, person. Now, this function has not been defined yet, and this is our new state variable. So let's add this in now. So we have person to attack, set person to attack. This is going to be a new state variable, and it's going to be a person, or it's going to be undefined, because when we first render this scene, we're not attacking anyone yet. It's only when you click on a person. So our initial state is just going to be undefined right there. Okay, so we added this new state variable in, and we're setting it when we click on a person. But we're not doing anything with this person to attack variable yet, so we need to handle that. Well, we know that the zombies are the ones that are going to be attacking the person we clicked, so let's pass that prop into the zombie component. So person to attack equals person to attack. So this is a new state variable. If we go down to our zombie component, we need to add this in now. And I'm adding the question mark because this could be undefined. And I'm just going to add that prop in right here. So what does this change? Well, now the zombie has to do some initial check after it renders to see if there's a person to attack. And if there is, it needs to update its position to that of the person. So this suggests that we need to use a use effect, right? Because this is something that's going to run after the zombie renders, and it may need to update its position as a side effect if there is a person to attack. So if there is a person to attack, we're going to update the zombie's position. And how are we going to do that? Well, now we're talking about the position updating. So this suggests a new state variable in the zombie component. So let's pretend we have a position state variable. So all we're going to do is if there's a person to attack, we're going to set the position of the zombie to person to attack dot position. And we need to add our dependency array in here. This is going to be person to attack, meaning that anytime the person to attack changes, we're going to rerun this function on the next render, and that will update its position accordingly to the new person to attack. And now we need to add in the state variable because it doesn't exist yet. So position, set position equals react dot use state. We can reuse our position type from the very first part of this lesson. And the initial position is just going to be the zombie's position. And now instead of directly using the zombie's position here, for the left, we're going to use position.x. And for the top, we're just going to use position.y. Just have a little typo there. So there we go. Now what's going to happen if we go back to our person? If we click on a person, this will invoke our onClick function. That goes back up to the parent component. When we click on a person, we will set the person to attack to the person that we're rendering. And when we set a person to attack, well, that person gets passed as a prop into our zombie component. And then if we go down here, that should update the position of that zombie to the person. So now, if I refresh, if I click on a yellow square, as you can see, the zombie squares all move directly to that exact position. So this is exactly what we want. And now there's just one part missing. We want the people, or the person, I should say, to turn into another zombie once those zombies reach it, right? So this suggests that we need another callback function in the zombie component to handle this. So we're cheating a little bit. We know that in the final version of this project, that there's a little bit of a delay. The zombies aren't going to immediately move to the human because there's this animation. So at some point, the zombie component has to tell the parent component that the animation is finished. They finished their attack on the person, and now the person can be turned into another zombie. So we're going to add a new callback function here called attack complete, and that's going to take the person that was attacked. And this function doesn't exist yet, so we're going to add it as another new prop. And then we're going to add this to our type definition as well. So on attack complete, that's going to take a person, and it's just going to return void. And now if we go back to our zombie, we need to pass this in on attack complete, and this is going to turn person into zombie. And notice I'm not defining the function yet. I'm writing this in a more declarative way for readability purposes. If I look just at this component, when the attack's complete, the person turns into a zombie. That makes sense. I don't want to sort of muddle this up with the specifics of what that looks like, because it'll just make this code a bit harder to read and more difficult to maintain in the future. So let's define this function now. So turn person into zombie. So this is going to take a person, and what's that going to do? Well, first things first, we need to set the person to attack to undefined, because that person is being attacked already. And if they're being turned into a zombie, that person to attack is no longer going to exist. So just to avoid any weird errors with referencing things that are undefined, we're just immediately going to clear that. And then what next? Well, we need to update the people, right? So we're going to set people. That person that we attacked no longer exists because they're being turned into a zombie. So the new value of the people state variable is going to be people.filter, and all the ones for the ID does not equal the person that was attacked.id. Similarly, we're going to update the zombies because now we have a new one, right? So we're going to use spread to set this to all the original zombies. Plus, we have a new zombie now, which is going to have an ID of, let's just say, zombies.length. Just for the purposes of this demo, we know this is unique because it's going to be one greater than the number of zombies we currently have, and our very first one had an ID of 0. So this will be okay. We're not going to get any conflicts in the ID. And for the position, it's just going to be the person.position, because this was the person that was turned into a zombie. And that's really all we have to do here. If I save, this is all going to compile now. If we look at everything we just added, when the attack on the person completes, meaning that the position of the zombie was updated to that person, we're going to call onAttackComplete with that person that was attacked. This onAttackComplete function is going to call turn person into zombie, and that's going to clear the person to attack, remove the person that was attacked from our people state variable, and add a new zombie, which was really just that person, to our zombie state variable. So now if I refresh, and if I click on any of these people, so the yellow squares, it's going to look similar as before, but now notice that that original person is now gone when I click on another one, meaning that they were transformed into another zombie. And if you don't completely believe me, we can prove this by adding a simple log here just for testing. So let's log the number of zombies every time this parent component re-renders, right? Number of zombies, zombies.length. If I open up my console here, refresh, so we can see that there's 4 zombies initially. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I click on a person, now there's 5. If I click on another person, now there's 6. So as you can see, the number of zombies is increasing every time I click on a person. And this is exactly what we want for this part. We're actually pretty close to being done with not too much code. All that's really left is to learn how to use the framer motion library to create this nice spring effect and really give that feel that these green zombie squares are swarming that person that we clicked on. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you learned something. Please like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. Let me know what else you want to see. And I'll see you back for the final part 3 in the series.